Tales of the Incandescent, Episode 1. Our tale begins in complete darkness. A voice belonging to a character we'll come to know as X whispers through the void, "I want to be something." X, voiceover whispered. "I want to be something." Narrator. Slowly the darkness fades, replaced by a blurry, dusty environment. We see pale, skinny fingers touching sand. X, voiceover. What is something? I feel like I'm listening to a story or telling one maybe. Where do I want to be? Is that how I figure out who I am? Figure out first. The setting. Yeah. Narrator. As X contemplates her existence, the world around her begins to come into focus. We find ourselves in... Western-style music fades in. Narrator. A Hollywood Western town and saloon. People dressed in period costumes walk around, oblivious to each other, going about various cliched acts associated with their cookie-cutter Western characters. Sound of footsteps and general Western town ambience. Narrator. Amidst this scene, we see X. She's pale with beautiful, delicate European features, long black hair, slender but with broad shoulders and hips. She wears a beautiful Victorian top with a mid-length Lolita skirt and fishnet stockings. X, confused. What is myself, narrator? As X looks around the village, trying to make sense of herself and her surroundings, her eyes fixate on something a good distance away. Sound of a crowd murmuring. Narrator. We pan up from the base of a wooden crate, slowly revealing a curious figure standing atop it, his appearance as eccentric as it is captivating. This man, who we'll come to know as Y, is dressed in tight black pants and a Victorian-style black and white leather tunic. A lavish purple overcoat adorned with gold trim cascades down to his ankles. His entire demeanour evokes the image of a demonic, elfish Willy Wonka. With pointed ears and scraggly white hair that doesn't quite reach his shoulders, he seems like the kind of character who should be wearing a top hat, though he isn't. Y's voice booms across the town square as he shouts,
"Come one, come all, come whoever the hell, and bear witness to a sea of information stretching both ominously before and behind you. For what wonders to behold beside the light of things illuminated by the shine of thine own two bright eyes."
As X approaches, Y continues his enigmatic speech, gesturing dramatically to a giant light bulb beside him. The bulb sits atop a metallic golden cube, its surface adorned with intricate carvings depicting a variety of esoteric imagery. Doves, olive branches, serpents, geometric tree branches, men and women exchanging cups, angels blowing trumpets, and the dead rising from graves. Y hops down from the crate as X draws near, startling her slightly. He addresses her directly.
"Excuse me, madam, but are you beautiful? Sorry, excuse me, I mean to say, madam, aren't you beautiful?"
X, still trying to make sense of her surroundings and herself, asks for his name. Y introduces himself simply as Y, like the letter, and suggests that she be called X, given that she's the only other character present and can't remember her own name. Their conversation takes an intriguing turn as Y invites X to peer into his giant light bulb. He promises that it will allow them to see around and inside of worlds alternate and parallel to their current reality. X, both wary and curious, questions Y's motives and the nature of their current location. Y, with a devilish grin, observes that X has an aura of boredom about her. He retrieves a wire from the ground, connected to the base of the light bulb, and holds it up. "Tell me something," he says. "Who are you? Not your name, but who are you?" X hesitates, unable to answer, prompting Y to remark on her apparent identity confusion and boredom. He offers once more for her to peer into the light bulb, assuring her that he means no deception and only wishes to illuminate her beauty. Despite her reservations, X's curiosity gets the better of her. She agrees to trust Y, hoping that his strange device might indeed offer adventure, beauty, and a sense of identity. With childlike glee, Y grips the wire with both hands. You say I can find identity, adventure, beauty and life, X says, a hint of mockery in her voice. Okay, show me. Y's grin widens as he gives the wire a gentle tug. The plug pops out of its outlet in a nearby barrel, causing water to pour out. Suddenly, the giant light bulb illuminates with intense brightness, accompanied by a loud hum. It's very bright, X exclaims, shielding her eyes. What happens now? Narrator. The bulb's light grows even stronger, enveloping everything in its glow. The loud hum intensifies and then sound fades to silence, then transitions to gentle Christmas bells. Our scene shifts to a snowy, rural backroad in Wyoming. Christmas Miracle, Tales of the Incandescent Illumination No. 1. The incandescent light emanating from a giant light bulb faded, giving way to a snowy scene on rural Wyoming backroads. A family minivan drove through the winter landscape as Dad's voice enthusiastically declared, "The best thing about Wyoming is the snow, kids." Inside the minivan, 2 boys sat in the back seat. Mark, 14, and Jared, 11, peered out the windows at the passing scenery. Their parents, an average-looking couple, occupied the front seats with Dad at the wheel. Mark, unimpressed, retorted, "As long as I don't have to shovel it." Jared, on the other hand, bubbled with excitement. "I've never, built a snowman or anything before." Suddenly, Mark announced, "Yo, Dad, let's stop somewhere. I gotta piss." Mom immediately chastised him. "Mark, what's your language? It's Christmas." Dad chuckled, trying to diffuse the tension. "Haha, it's okay, hun. I gotta pee too. We'll stop at the next gas station." Mom shook her head disapprovingly as Dad and Jared shared a laugh. Mark continued to gaze out the window, seemingly uninterested in the family banter. Soon they pulled into a shabby mountain gas station. Inside, Mark examined a curly, slim Jim while Dad generously offered, "You kids get whatever you want, all right?" Mark, still unimpressed, muttered, "Yeah, whatever's edible." In the corner of the store, Mom's attention was drawn to some holiday-themed racks. Her eyes widened as she spotted an enormous stocking. "Look at these," she called out. "They're huge." Dad, focused on practicality, responded, "We don't need any decoration-type stuff, hun. The place I rented comes fully lit up and decorated. All we gotta get is the tree, but leave that to the men." Mum clarified, "No, that's not what I mean. I'm just saying this thing's big enough to fit a whole toy store in. This is a weird gas station." Jared's eyes lit up at the mention of a toy store, while Mark dryly commented, "They're for giants." As they prepared to leave, Dad asked, "We all set here?" Mark nodded. "I'm good." Dad turned to Jared. "You don't want a stale honey bun or anything, Jared?" "No way," Jared exclaimed. Dad laughed, and Mark quipped, "I might get the expired Slim Jim." The whole family shared a laugh, oblivious to the store owner rolling his eyes before returning his attention to the small TV playing Ancient Aliens. Back on the snowy rural roads, Dad continued his enthusiastic monologue about their destination. "Nobody around for miles, fresh clean mountain air, and wait till you guys see the cabin." The kids, however, were more interested in the passing scenery, their faces pressed against the windows. Dad persisted, "We're lucky we got to book this place when we did because—" Suddenly, Mom's panicked voice cut through the air, "Ed, stop!" A reindeer stood in the middle of the road. The minivan swerved and braked hard, tires screeching on the icy surface as everyone screamed. As the vehicle came to a halt, Mom's worried voice filled the tense silence. "Are you guys okay?" Jared responded shakily, "I'm fine." Mark simply nodded, his eyes wide with shock. The family stared at the reindeer standing motionless in front of their car. Jared, his voice tinged with wonder, asked, "There's real reindeer in Wyoming too, Dad?" Mom, sounding uncertain, replied, Don't think so. Dad, trying to maintain his cheerful demeanour, suggested, they probably escaped from some Christmas exhibit somewhere, but wow, what a Christmassy thing to happen, right, guys? Jared, still shaken, retorted sarcastically, what? Almost get in a car crash. They watched as the reindeer suddenly took off into the woods, leaving them all in a state of bewildered silence. As night fell, the family finally arrived at their rented Christmas cabin. The place was already festively decorated, strings of lights twinkling in the darkness. Jared, his voice dripping with sarcasm, muttered, "Wow, Dad." Dad, undeterred, responded with a shrug, "Go big or go home." As they began to unpack, Mom tried to smooth things over. "Your dad just thinks we deserve a real Christmas for once. You guys are always at school and practice, we're always at work. This'll be nice." Inside the cabin, the family set down their bags and took in the Christmassy decor. Mark, noticing something missing, asked, "Where's the tree?" Dad explained, "I told you guys we're going to go out and find the tree ourselves. The tree's a big deal. That's why I bought all this fancy mountaineering equipment." Jared rolled his eyes at his father's enthusiasm. As Dad settled into a comfy chair and turned on the TV, he added, "There's Wi-Fi and all too, obviously. You kids take your bags up to whatever rooms you want." Mum, admiring the spacious kitchen, commented, "Such a big countertop, too. I can wrap presents here tomorrow morning while you guys are out and look out this big window at the snow. Oh, it'll be so Christmassy." She then joined Dad in his chair, sitting on his lap. They shared a kiss and exchanged Merry Christmas wishes. The next morning, Mark ventured outside to retrieve something from the minivan. As he closed the car door, he noticed reindeer hoof prints in the snow near the back of the vehicle. He scanned the snowy landscape, a mixture of curiosity and unease on his face. Back inside, Mum sipped coffee at the counter while Dad and Jared got dressed. Mark entered, his voice hesitant. "Hey, Dad." Dad, focused on getting ready, replied, "Come on, get dressed." Mark persisted. "I think that reindeer followed us up here last night. There's tracks outside by the car." Dad, maintaining his cheerful demeanour, joked, "Maybe it's one of Santa's reindeer coming to check up on you guys." Mum laughed, setting her coffee on the counter before standing up. "Okay, you big strong men, go get me a Christmas tree." As Mark headed off to get dressed, Mum gazed out the large kitchen window. "I hope some reindeer do come back. So festive," she mused, blissfully unaware of the extraordinary events about to unfold. Later that day, Mum found herself alone in the cabin, wrapping presents and sipping wine at the counter. Christmas music played softly in the background as she looked out the window, admiring the snowy landscape. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock, her jaw dropping open. Through the window, she witnessed an incredible sight. Bigfoot, dressed in a dark green and gold druid cloak, chasing 8 tiny reindeer through the snow, growling as he pursued them. Mom stared out the window, frozen in disbelief, long after the strange procession had passed from view. Finally, she took a big swig of her wine, looked back at the window, and burst into laughter. Ha! Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! The absurdity of what she'd just seen overwhelmed her, leaving her in a state of hysterical amusement. Meanwhile, in the snow-covered forest, Dad and the boys trudged through the deep snow in search of the perfect Christmas tree. Jared, growing impatient, complained, "These are all too big, Dad." Dad simply replied, "I know," and they continued their search. Suddenly, a snowball flew past Mark and hit Jared squarely in the shoulder. Jared spun around, accusing his brother, "You little turd." Mark, genuinely surprised, looked behind himself and protested, "It wasn't me." Jared, unconvinced, retorted sarcastically, "Right, it was Santa's elves then." Dad, trying to keep the peace, intervened, "You guys can play in the snow when we get back. You don't want to get all wet before we find a tree." Just as Dad turned back around, A snowball smacked him right in the face. Jared exclaimed, "Oh, shit!" Mark, vindicated, shouted, "See? I told you it wasn't me." Without warning, more snowballs started flying from every direction, pelting them relentlessly. Mark cried out, "Dad!" Dad, realizing the bizarre nature of their situation, yelled, "Run!" They all took off running, continuing to be bombarded by the mysterious onslaught of snowballs. Jared, breathless and confused, shouted, "What's going on?" Dad, equally baffled, responded, "I don't know." Just as suddenly as it began, the snowball assault ceased. The family skidded to a halt, finding themselves face to face with the most perfect Christmas tree they'd ever seen. It stood bathed in an inexplicable spotlight, glowing ethereally as birds chirped around it, and holy hymns accompanied by harp music filled the air. Dad, his voice filled with awe, said, "Guys, look." Jared glanced back the way they came, peering into the woods for any sign of their mysterious assailants, but saw nothing. Mark, still catching his breath, exclaimed, "What just happened?" Dad, shaking his head in disbelief, replied, "I have no idea." Mark, his earlier excitement returning, said, "It was kind of fun, and we found a tree." Dad, snapping back to the task at hand, agreed. "Okay, yeah, let's cut it down and get out of here." He took off his backpack and produced an axe. With determination, he began to chop at the tree, huffing and puffing with each swing. The kids watched as their father struggled with the task. After several minutes of exertion, Dad stepped back and looked at the tree, barely dented by his efforts. "Maybe I should have brought a chainsaw," he admitted sheepishly. Jared, unimpressed, muttered, "Wow, Dad. Just wow." Dad surveyed the darkening woods around them. "It's going to be dark out by time we get this thing cut down. I don't want to have you guys out here in the dark." Mark, disappointed, asked, "What about the tree, Dad?" Dad, trying to salvage the situation, suggested, "We'll come back first thing in the morning with a chainsaw." Jared rolled his eyes again, clearly frustrated with the turn of events. Mark, worried, pointed out, "Santa won't know where to leave the presents, though." Dad, maintaining his optimistic facade, reassured him, "Don't worry, he's Santa. I'm sure he's run into this kind of thing before. He'll figure it out." Jared, his voice tinged with sarcasm, remarked, "Yeah, if we can find our way back." Dad, determined to keep spirits high, insisted, "We will. Don't worry. Come on, guys." As the sun began to set, Dad and the boys made their way through the snowy forest, retracing their steps. Dad, still trying to justify their predicament, explained, "See, if we can find our way back then, we can find our way back again, tomorrow too." Jared, exasperated, retorted, "You make no sense, Dad." Mark, anxiety creeping into his voice, observed, "It's getting dark." Dad acknowledged the obvious. "I know. The car's right up here." They struggled up a steep, snowy hill with Mark nearly losing his footing. "Dad, it's too steep," he cried out. Dad reached for Mark's hand, encouraging him. "You got this, come on." Finally, they crested the hill and saw the minivan waiting for them. "See, we made it," Dad said triumphantly. As they drove away, the camera panned down to reveal a Bigfoot footprint right next to the end of their tire track in the snow. A silent testament to the extraordinary events unfolding around them. Arriving back at the cabin, Dad called out as they entered, "Hey, Hun, bad news." "Hun?" They found Mom sitting in the comfy chair, a bottle of wine in hand, laughing to herself. The counter was strewn with half-wrapped presents. Dad approached Mom cautiously, instructing the boys, "Jared, take your brother upstairs and wash up." He gently took the wine from Mom's hand and set it on an end table. "Honey, what happened? Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Mom, still giggling, replied, "Ha ha ha, yeah, I saw. Ha ha, Bigfoot." Dad, attributing her state to the alcohol and unfamiliar surroundings, suggested, "The climate must be getting to you with the wine." Mum continued, her words punctuated by laughter. He was chasing 8 tiny reindeer. Ha 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 ha. Right outside our window. Dad, trying to rationalize the situation, said, I think the climate is getting to me and the boys too. Probably saw those exhibit deer again and got spooked and had a hallucination. Honey, go upstairs and lay down. I'll go call the game warden about the deer. Mom, still chuckling, conceded. You're probably right. Dad reassured her. I am. Mom, suddenly remembering, asked, Did you get a tree? Dad, avoiding the subject, replied, No, that's a long story for tomorrow. For now, just rest, hun. I'm going to go call the warden. He kissed her and walked to the kitchen, leaving Mom laughing to herself in the chair. So, in the kitchen, Dad looked out the window as he dialed the game warden's number. When the warden answered, Dad explained the situation. Hi, I just wanted to let you guys know that there's some runaway reindeer prowling around up here. They've scared my wife and almost wrecked my car. You should get someone up here to handle them before they cause some real damage. The game warden, skeptical, responded, Sir, is this a joke? I appreciate the festive theme, but there are no reindeer up here. We have a lot of species and there are deer, but not reindeer. Dad, insistent, replied, It's not a joke. I think they escaped from some kind of Christmas exhibit nearby. The warden, maintaining his stance, explained, There's no Christmas exhibits going on up there, sir, and we haven't gotten any calls in about any escaped livestock. Best I could do is call some neighbouring counties. Dad, rolling his eyes, conceded, Okay, thank you for your help. The warden wished him a Merry Christmas, to which Dad half-heartedly responded, Yeah, you too. As Dad hung up and went to check on Mom, who had fallen asleep in the chair, a loud thud from outside the house caught his attention. Dad's face set with determination as he rushed outside, Jared close behind. They exchanged a knowing look before Jared exclaimed, Dad, the deer! I know, Dad responded as they split up to circle the house. After a moment, they reconvened at the front, both gasping for air. You see them? Jared asked. No, Dad replied, catching his breath. Me either, Jared admitted. Dad, still determined to get to the bottom of things, said, I'm going to call the game warden back. Go inside with your brother. As Jared headed inside, Dad took out his phone to redial. But before he could make the call, Jared's panicked voice rang out from inside the cabin. Dad! Dad rushed back into the house, unprepared for the sight that greeted him. There, in the center of the room, stood the hooded Bigfoot, holding the perfect tree from the forest over his shoulder. The creature's heavy breathing caused the tree to rise and fall, shaking bits of dirt from its roots. Mark, his voice filled with wonder, exclaimed, It's Santa! Jared, seizing the moment, whipped out his phone and started recording. Dad stood trembling, unable to process the scene before him. The Bigfoot slowly turned around, revealing a big, grisly, but unmistakably happy grin. With a thunderous movement, he slammed the tree down onto the cabin floor. The Bigfoot's deep, jovial voice boomed through the cabin. Dad, his voice quavering with a mix of fear and awe, It's a Christmas miracle.